Hi everybody, this is Dawn again from the Wingloop Museum of the Asian Pacific American Experience. Thanks for joining us for week 8 of Tadaima, a community virtual pilgrimage. If you saw my segment back in week 3, I talked about what detention looked like at the Seattle's Immigration and Naturalization Services building and shared with you all about one story of head of a household in the Murakami family who had a big presence in Seattle's Japantown. The Murakami family that ran the Higo variety store was one of great importance and holds a lot of memories for people in Seattle's Japanese American community. I'm going to be sharing with you all some photographs and an audio interview with some of the community members who are currently utilizing the space where the Higo variety store resides and kind of give you a little bit more insight on what's happening today in Japantown and what this family is doing.
Okay, so my name is Binko Chong Bisbee, and the name of our business is Kobo Shop and Gallery, but the International District or Japantown location is called Kobo at Higo, in honor of Higo Variety Store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I grew up in Japan. I grew up in Seattle. I was born in Japan, but came to Seattle when I was about 6 and grew up here and spent most of my early childhood here. So the family has always been connected to Japantown. We returned to Seattle after being away for several years, and we wanted to start a business that had some connection with Japan in Seattle. And John's background is in architecture. I've always been interested in folk arts and crafts. My mother collected a lot of folk craft when she was living in Japan. And we had an opportunity to start something, a very small store on Capitol Hill. This was in 1995. And we ran that business for 5 years until 2004. A friend, Terry Takeuchi, who also knew Paul Murakami, told me that Higo Variety Store was closing. We were not looking to expand our business, but we were amazed at the space, and that space has so much meaning for many of us who grew up in Seattle. And there's a huge community of people who wanted to see Higo Variety Store survive in some way. I think with so much redevelopment going on in Seattle and change, I think we were thinking that maybe there's a way that we could preserve what was there, not completely change it, and do something interesting in the space. And it was a huge decision on our part because it also involved some investment on our end. We had to also think about the neighborhood and what was there. The Wingloop was still in its small location, so it was not in their new facilities. Jan Johnson was there, and she had already renovated the Panama Hotel, which was a very important building in Japantown. But it was a very quiet and kind of a neighborhood in decline at that time. In spite of seeing some of the downside, we also saw the possibilities and the excitement of joining Jan Johnson, the Wingloop Museum, and some other like Wajimaya to kind of revitalize that neighborhood. And Paul Murakami gave us some latitude to go into that space, and we took time to kind of recreate it and reimagine it. So one of the first things we did was we didn't want to completely whitewash the interior and make it brand new. We did put a fresh coat of paint on it, and we had many community members, family members. Paul Murakami's family also came and helped us, many of his friends, to basically refurbish a lot of the cabinetry and counter space, glass cabinetry that the Murakamis had used in their old business. So that was a very exciting part of our project, was to kind of reuse and refurbish what was already there, without changing the flavor of that space. So you still see the old fluorescent lights. You see the old linoleum flooring. Some of it is still, you'll see pieces that have broken off, but that all adds to the flavor. I think many of us who grew up in Seattle, and have a connection to Japantown and the International District, remember Masa and Aya, who were the last two sisters who were the proprietors of Higo Variety Store. So they ran that, after their brother and mother passed away. And everyone has stories about going into the shop, and it had the smell of mothballs, because that's also something that they sold. But sometimes you had to be careful, because it also permeated some of the food stuff that they sold, like some of the candy, if it were next to it, or some of the senbei, the Japanese rice crackers, if it was displayed next to it, then, and you ate it, then you can kind of taste a little bit of that. So that was kind of funny. I think we were given this really wonderful, unique opportunity to use this space, so honored by the community. And, I think John and I tried to think about what could we do to help the neighborhood, rebuild itself and celebrate it in a new way. And I think, over the last, I can't believe that we've been there for so many years, since, yeah, it's been like 15 years. It's amazing. Um, but I think the main thing is that we were able to use a space with so much history, and kind of showcase it in a different way, to reimagine it. And so I'm hoping that others in other places, other communities who have a wonderful asset like the Higo Variety Store can think about, using it in a way where history can be preserved, and the people of today can see what was there before and make that connection um, with the present and the past. Because I'm a firm believer of, we shouldn't erase the past. We are part of that past, and we need to be able to share it with the future. Um, I think what's one of the things that we have done in reimagining is in that space is that someone can come into Higo Variety Store today and have some sense of what was there before. And it's interesting that it conjures, or it promotes a lot of conversation with people who visit us. We have a section that, so hold on. I wrote a note. Oh, so in partnership with the Wing Museum, we help put together a permanent exhibit inside the shop, where you can see examples of merchandise the Higo family used. So we have on display things like hats from the 1930s to Japanese made dishes, old toys, cash registers, old adding machines. And so people who come and visit can still see this and experience the history. So another reason why, the history is important to me is that it's part of my heritage and history. My mom was a Nisei who was incarcerated at Santa Anita, and then her family was then forced to leave their home and their garden nursery business in Riverside, California, and they had to settle for a time in Chicago. So telling the story of what happened, to the Japanese community is a way for me to honor my mom and her family, and acknowledging the hardship that many of those families had to go through during that time. Yeah. The story of immigration resonates with a lot of people, and visitors often comment on their family history. They can kind of relate to the story of Japanese immigration, which is kind of interesting. People from all over the world who come through our business. Celebrate and learn more about the people business community in Japantown and its neighbors in the International District. It's such an important asset in Seattle, and if it goes away, it's not going to come back. It's much more difficult for it to come back. So we have to preserve that. It's so different. It's such a special place. I mean, that's how most of us feel about it. So go and explore and walk the neighborhood, and I don't know, just connect with neighborhood people and be curious. I don't know if it's okay to mention that, every year we have that block party, a celebration called Hi Japantown. So we're hoping to have some form of the event even during the year of the pandemic. So stay tuned.